Illegal immigration is wrong, plain and simple.
This is just common sense. All Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal migration.
The American people will never accept immigration reform unless they truly believe that their government is committed to ending future illegal immigration.
The border wall would very quickly pay for itself.
Any successful, comprehensive immigration reform bill must recognize this fact.
Senator Chuck Schumer, who you will be hearing from later tonight, has repeatedly supported a physical barrier in the past, along with many other Democrats. They changed their mind only after I was elected president.
We can secure our border without an ineffective, expensive wall. The President of the United States has shut down the government.
The federal government remains shut down for one reason, and one reason only, because Democrats will not fund border security.
The American people are fundamentally pro-legal immigration and anti-illegal immigration.
Why do wealthy politicians build walls, fences, and gates around their homes? They don't build walls because they hate the people on the outside, but because they love the people on the inside. This is a choice between right and wrong, justice and injustice. This is about whether we fulfill our sacred duty to the American citizens we serve.
The symbol of America should be the Statue of Liberty, not a 30-foot wall.
It will be a steel barrier rather than a concrete wall.
End this shutdown now.
When I took the oath of office, I swore to protect our country. And that is what I will always do. So help me God.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back and Happy New Year from the Wright Brothers. We appreciate each and every one of y'all. Shout out to all of our loyal subscribers in the tribe. We could not do this without all of your support, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. If this is your first time watching, when you're done watching, we would love for you to press that subscribe button. We're always growing the tribe. We always are happy to bring more into the fold. But without further ado, what we really want to talk about today is the government shutdown, President Trump's remarks, and the usual chaos that ensued thereafter. So, Eddie, I kind of want to hear your take, because this was actually President Trump's first Oval Office address. And I want to hear what your thoughts are on as how he couched the situation to the general public, and then how you internalized and digested both his remarks, and then we'll get into some of the reactions from that moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the important thing here was it was a tonal change from Trump. I think something a little bit different than what we're used to seeing. I think the main takeaways for me was that it was a pithy presentation. It was pragmatic, and it was powerful in just the way that he was able to get his point across. I think people on both sides of the aisle have kind of gotten used to some maybe superfluous stuff coming from Trump, for better or for worse. He's a bit of a showman at heart, and that's part of what got him in the Oval Office to begin with. But in his first Oval Office address, it wasn't about the showmanship. It was about, okay, this is why we're where we are with the government shutdown. This is what I intend to do. This is why I need to do it. And then he pretty much tied it up with a bow and kicked it out to the American people. I thought it was the correct approach to the situation. I'm not sure if either his remarks or the so-called rebuttal from the Democratic side of the aisle actually did much to change anyone's minds. There's not a whole lot of moderates in the middle that have yet to pick a side when it comes to the border wall. But I think the one thing that was important that I took away from it as well was too many people are focused on the wall itself. And while maybe that has a reason for being a point of contention, that wasn't the sole reason for the address. He also mentioned that it's part of a measure. The wall is a measure that will be rolled into other aspects of border enforcement. And I think that gets lost in the shuffle. People are like, well, a wall won't do anything. Personally, I'm not as gung-ho about the wall myself. That's not the reason I voted Trump into office, and I don't view it as a panacea for illegal immigration. But I think those who are opposed to it do see it as that, and I think it's a bit of a misplaced priority as far as why they're opposed to it. I think it's mainly about Trump and less about border security, and I think that kind of supersedes why they why people totally ignore the rest of the border enforcement proposal that Trump laid out, of which the wall is only a part. Again, only a part. So, Damani, I wanted to hear what your takeaways were from it, and kind of get where you're coming down on it in the aftermath.
Yeah, so I think the wall, it really does encapsulate a lot of what President Trump was from the beginning, because he came out of the gate with very brash, very unconventional ideas that you didn't really hear the average politician talking about. But I would dare say that even with his comments in his announcement speech, when he brought up the topic of illegal immigration for the first time as a candidate, I think that fully did embody what his full campaign was about. There was chance of build the wall or what have you. And to your point, yes, the wall is only one part of border security. There's a ton more that goes into it. But I think what we have to also do is realize that even the very mention of a wall not too long ago was not even controversial. Like, even we have politicians like Hillary Clinton, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, who we'll talk about in a little bit later. But we've heard all these other people on the other side of the aisle who said, yes, they are for a wall. They're for border security, enforcing our borders. You look around the country, even some of or not around the country, around the world, some of our allies in the world, Israel, they have a wall that is proven to work for them, again, for the infiltration of Palestinians. Look at the Vatican City. The Vatican City has a wall. Mexico has a wall on their southern border to protect their national sovereignty. So the concept of a wall itself is not necessarily the most off-the-wall thing that's ever occurred. What we've seen, though, exactly, I didn't even catch that. But what we see, though, is that public sentiment has shifted to where all of a sudden anything to do with keeping America safe or keeping our borders secure is deemed to be, I've heard the term immoral brought around. I've heard the term racist thrown around. And that's a different topic. We talked about racism to a degree. We'll talk about it more on this channel as well. But the word has been used and overused to the point where it's used to describe everything. It honestly almost loses its meaning at that point. For me personally, I mean, for those of you who don't know, who are watching, Eddie and I both live in a border state, the great state of Texas, the Lone Star State. And we realize, though, that there are a lot of people who are undocumented, actually illegal, we're going to use the actual term, who have crossed our border and who've actually become somewhat of a burden on the taxpayer. Now, we'll preface this by saying not all of them are, but a disproportionate number, statistics have shown a disproportionate number of people who are illegally immigrating here do draw on some form of welfare. And we think that that's counterproductive because we still have so much to do as a country ourselves, that for us to say that it's okay for others to flout our immigration laws goes at cross purposes with what makes us a sovereign entity to begin with. But that's just my take on the wall. But instead of just talking about what we think, after President Trump, actually immediately after President Trump was done giving his first Oval Office address, your favorite Democratic dynamic duo, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, felt the need to come out and immediately give a response to President Trump's remarks. So obviously, I'm sure many of y'all saw that because it literally was right after President Trump's Oval Office address. But Eddie, I wanted to hear your take more on what they said. Just sum it up for us really briefly, how that really came off to you. Was it really just like nitpicking, or because it seemed to me that it was just to appear and show that they are not going to capitulate? And I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, to me, it really, the whole thing, politics, I tend to get a little bit rankled by the showmanship of it all, from whether it be Trump or the Democrats. I feel like the timing of it, like you said, it followed immediately after. You can't tell me that unless they had an advanced draft of it or knew exactly what he was going to say, which they probably did, because like I said, showmanship aspect of it. But if you wanted to at least give the appearance of being genuine, it might be better to give it a little bit of air to breathe before you come in and immediately try to rebut and then expect anybody to take the rebuttal as something well thought out and actually serious. It came off to me as a bit of an emotional appeal. And now I will say this. Yes, there are emotional appeals used to support the wall, to support the border wall. We'll actually get into one of those here in a minute. But the type of emotional appeal that I'm talking about with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi is they are appealing to the emotional values of those who opposed President Trump, not necessarily those who oppose border security, not necessarily those who oppose illegal immigration. They are playing purely on people who, for reasons that are all their own, are going to be anti anything that President Trump is for. And I think what that demonstrates is just a dangerous precedent in politics in general. Look, on this channel, we call ourselves the Wright Brothers. That's because we acknowledge our biases. We acknowledge that most of our beliefs are going to fall on the right side of the aisle, conservative, libertarian, whatever label you want to say. But just because we voted for or don't vote for somebody, that does not mean that from henceforth, everything that they say or don't say, we have to be in lockstep with. I can rattle off multiple issues off the top of my head with which I disagree with President Trump. I can rattle off multiple issues off the top of my head with which I agreed with President Obama. Take of that what you will, but for me, we always say the only way to make free thought great again is by being willing to have the conversation. If you're willing to have a conversation, you might find that the person you voted for doesn't always say what you want them to say or say what you believe, and that's okay, because guess what? They're not a carbon copy of you. The problem is in politics today is we see people who call themselves Trump supporters and they think they have to support 100% of what the man says, otherwise you're not a good supporter. That's inaccurate. On the other side of the aisle, you see people who didn't vote for Trump and they think they have to be 100% against anything that he proposes, whether or not it's a good idea. It doesn't matter. Logic has fled the room in that case, and I think Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi really played upon that, probably to great effect, because like I said, the sides are pretty well dug in at this point. So that's how it struck me. It struck me less as about the wall, less about border security, and more about, okay, here's how we can rally our troops around our anti-Trump base and use that to make a statement more than anything else. So, Damani, I know you had some thoughts on it as well, and a story to get into, but for me, it really came off as highly disingenuous.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it really was more about the sophomoric desire to be last, or to have the last word. And I thought we stopped playing those games a long time ago, but you can cherry pick any instance, any grievance, or anything that's going to suit your side well. We hear the left side of the aisle talking about, oh, well, the children aren't really the issue, or the illegals aren't committing all the crime we're coming over. And, we're not saying that they do per se. We're acknowledging the fact that because of our poor southern border, we do have these tragic consequences like Kate Steinle. But even more recently, we had the instance in California of Officer Ronil Singh, and he was actually shot and killed by an illegal immigrant, Gustavo Arriaga. And what's interesting about these two is that Officer Singh was a legal immigrant from the island of Fiji. He came here the right way, waited in line, did everything right, and he was here, and he was actually willing to protect the country. Obviously, he felt very strongly about the country because he felt the need to protect it. But when we saw that Mr. Arriaga felt the need to callously end this officer's life, who was also an immigrant, but just a legal immigrant, it goes to really show you and juxtapose how these two sides really view this. Obviously, we love our law enforcement officers. Obviously, we love our legal immigrant brothers and sisters and fellow countrymen. All that we ask, what's crazy, that it shouldn't be revolutionary to say that we should be able to have a say in who comes into the country. And when you don't, you let yourself, and you become prone to these attacks. And it's okay as Americans to want to protect your own. One of the best lines that I thought President Trump's Oval Office speech was, you don't have walls around your house because you hate the people outside the house. You have walls because you love the people who are inside. You want to protect them. And that's the
line
thought
of the night.
Exactly.
Line of the night, right?
That's
there.
the prevailing thought that we have. And we want to know what your thoughts are. Because as we say, the best way to make free thought great again is by being willing to have the conversation. We ask you to contribute to the conversation. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think we need a wall? Do you think we don't? What is your reasoning? We want to hear it all, because y'all's dialogue with us keeps us going, and we love engaging with our base. We're going to go ahead and wrap this video up now. So we want to thank y'all for taking this time once again. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page, The Wright Brothers IPID, where you can engage with us on a much deeper level. We also have recently launched our Patreon page for those of you who are inclined to support with a financial donation of any amount. Every bit counts. These videos take a lot of time, take a lot of money to invest to make sure that we bring you something that we think is worth watching to begin with. So if you are still watching this video, we appreciate you for hanging in there with us once again, kicking off 2019. and we're excited to bring you more content in the future. So thank you for taking this time, and without further ado, thanks and gig 'em.
Thanks and gig 'em.
The first revolution is when you change your mind about how you look at things and see that there might be another way to look at it that you have not been shown. The revolution will not be televised, and be no rerun, brothers and sisters. The revolution will be live.